What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Tales, Ales, and Trails. Today's episode is with Jason Roberson. He's a craft beer brand designer. Fantastic guy. He's worked for Sierra Nevada for 11 years. He was kind of the architect behind some of their, really iconic brand designs. Thinking about Ruthless Rye, thinking about so many other really iconic beers. He was the designer behind a lot of those really great cans, really great bottles. He has since left Sierra Nevada. He's gone on to start his own business and has been able to work with all kinds of different breweries, distilleries, all kinds of organizations, creating some really dynamic, creative, inspiring art and designs for these organizations. It was a great conversation. It was one of those opportunities we took to kind of look at things from a different perspective. And Jason was incredibly kind to invite us into his home to talk about all this. We can't wait for you guys to watch this. It's going to be a fantastic watch. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We're on X, we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok. Of course, we're on YouTube. We're on Spotify now. All of our episodes have been uploaded to Spotify if you guys want to listen in your car. So without further ado, please enjoy this episode with Jason Roberson, craft beer brand designer. Well, Jason, thanks so much for having us. Thanks for, inviting us into your space to have this conversation today. First off, right off the bat, I wanted to ask you, how are things going? How's the weekend been? How are you?
Great. Weekend's going good. I have a big weekend. I'm going to see some rock and roll tonight and watch sports all day yesterday. So can't beat that. I got my chores done early and now I'm going to drink some beer and have a good weekend. Yeah. So I'm excited.
Can't beat it. Sounds like the perfect weekend.
Yeah. Thanks for coming over. I appreciate you guys coming over and doing this.
Of course.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of want to talk about how this came to be quickly. We had that Chico News and Review story come out. Emily Hartner wrote that. Thanks again to her. But you reached out after. You said, "Hey, I think what you guys are doing is cool." And I looked at your website and I was like, "Whoa! Like this guy is doing a lot of really cool stuff. Mm-hmm. We got to see if he's going to be on the pod, if he'd be interested." And luckily, you were. So. I have a lot of questions. I want to really dive into kind of what you're all about. And I think the best place to start is kind of getting a little background on you. Where'd you grow up? I think you grew up in Chico, longtime local, and just kind of dive into some of your background a little bit.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what inspired me to reach out. Just was the focus was on local, businesses and folks. And so I grew up in Chico. I was, went to school from kindergarten through college in Chico. And, I grew up out on Butte Creek and, swimming and doing all the things you do in Chico. And it's a great place. I never, after college, I bounced around quite a bit, doing work, but always wanted to come back. And I just love it here and couldn't be happier raising my boys here. I've got, 17 and 19-year-old boys. And, it's just a great place to raise a family and enjoy the outdoors and,
Yeah, it's awesome.
Do all and the beer is good too.
Yeah, you can't beat it. It's such a, great combination of things. I mean, it's we love it. We've called it home for the last decade plus. Mm-hmm. Kyle's a longtime local, so just a lot to love around here. Mm-hmm. I wanted to dive right in and talk about. I think we have to talk about the art aspect of it before we dive anywhere else. You've had this artistic passion, and I kind of wanted to ask you about where the inspiration for your artistic background came from.
Yeah, so my mom was an amazing artist. She was a watercolorist and charcoal and block printing. And we grew up just surrounded by art. And, she was always, either designing something or she was an art history major. And so she was always looking at slides. She didn't watch TV. She would sit and flip through slides, the old slide reel of classic art. And so we, growing up, got to know a lot about art. I remember in like second grade, I knew more about art than my teacher. I was just knew all the classic stuff. So that was a huge, influence for me. But I'm going to just kind of go back a little bit. When I was a kid, I was really into music. It was my biggest passion. I thought I was going to play music for my whole life, which I still do for pleasure. But so I started working at Main Street Music in downtown Chico, and I ended up working there for quite a long time. But it was just the best job ever. And I got to know the owner really well, Dan Craig.
Yeah.
And so he introduced me to the world of sound reinforcement and like live sound.
Yeah.
And so I used to go out and help him do shows and do installations for, theaters and things like that. And he took me out with him to Colorado to the International Design Conference in Aspen, Colorado. And so my job was to set up microphones and do the AV for these design presentations by like the world's best designers. And so I'm just this kid doing the microphones, right?
How old were you around this time?
I'm like 19, 20.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. Wow. And I'm just the guy that like I would go up and clip the mic. I'm like, hi, sir. I'm going to clip the mic on you. But then I would sit in these conferences, for hours and hours all day, just listening to these guys. It's just literally the best in the world. David Carson comes to mind, who was he's like a New York ad genius. Yeah. And funny thing is, I met him and I was putting his mic on, and he's drinking Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. And I said, "Oh, that's my hometown." And so I started a conversation with him and kind of became friendly enough with him that sort of stayed connected with him through the years. But he was a big inspiration. But that experience of seeing these guys and just listening to them think about design in a way that I just couldn't even imagine. It wasn't like a seminar and like here's the button you click to do this. It was like the thinking and the strategy. And it really stuck with me all year. And I went, the next year I went, I was just, God, this is really something.
Yeah. And
so then I signed up for all the classes at Butte College, and I took all the art classes they had to offer, and the photography and the graphic design. And I loved it. So that's sort of where it all began for me.
Yeah, it had to be such a formative experience, talking about being a teenager and being in front of, having all of these incredible designers right in front of you. That sounds.
There was like directors, like the guy, Lawrence Kasdan, who, did like produce Ben-Hur, was like one of the presenters. It was insane. Like, it was ridiculous. Yeah. The Bryan Singer, he did like, I forget the movies that this guy did. And they were so approachable. And like the German guys that we got to meet, just their philosophy about design. And so I followed these guys because I got to know them. I just kind of followed their careers and kept tabs on them. And it just kind of kept going like, maybe this is something that I could do. And so it stuck with me. And I never had a career in design until it was just a hobby. And I would do posters for friends' bands and T-shirts. But one day I met Bob Littell through the music store, and he's a harmonica player, but he's also the general manager of the Sierra Nevada Tap Room and Pub, and the Big Room. And so they were starting this TV show, the Sierra Center Stage TV show, and they needed a logo. And I said, hey, let me just give it a shot. I don't even think I charged them at first because I was just like, I didn't know if I was going to do a good job or not. Sure. But anyways, I really enjoyed working with the brewery, and they were so nice and so cool. And we went through this whole project, and I do have it sitting right here. So this is the original label. It's my first project ever for Sierra Nevada before I worked there.
That's awesome.
And so after the project was done, we did all the inset stuff, and they said, hey, would you like to come, work here part-time? Yeah. And the funny thing was the VP of sales and marketing, Steve Harrison, he said to me, he's like, we can't offer you a full-time job because we just can't imagine what we would do with a full-time graphic designer. Like, there is not enough graphic design work to do around here. Like, but, we can give you 20 hours a week or whatever. And, and that was it. They never thought that they could imagine. And within, I think, 2 months, they were hiring me full-time because once the word got out with the sales force that like the sales team were like, we need posters, we need this, we have an event. And, so I was just buried immediately. And so they had never had a in-house graphic design person or any marketing at that time, because I don't know if you remember, but Sierra Nevada never paid for advertising for their first 30 years or whatever. Yeah, I mean, it was like at least 25
grassroots, word of mouth.
All word of mouth. Yeah. So, and that was a big source of pride for them. So there was no marketing department. There were, event staff type people, that would support, beer events, but no traditional marketing whatsoever, no print ads. The first thing I think I ever did for the gift shop. It was like a pen, and I put Sierra Nevada on the pen, and like we got a standing ovation from the sales staff. They're like, yeah, it's a pen with our name on it. They were so excited. It was hilarious. And it was kind of sad. So my first, few years working there, I mostly focused on, like I said, sales support and, the gift shop and things like that. And at the time, Sierra Nevada only had 7 total products that they packaged. So it was the Pale Porter Stout, the Crystal Wheat, and then there were the seasonals, which were Bigfoot, Summerfest, and Celebration. Yeah. And they hadn't changed the packaging on any of that stuff forever. Right. So it was, that wasn't part of my job at all initially. And one day, Ken and Steve showed up to my little office in the way back of the brewery, and they're like, "Hey, we're gonna package this IPA in a brown ale. So we need you to design the label." And they're like, I'm like, "Oh, okay, great." And they're like, "Oh, open your computer, let's go." And they literally, Ken and Steve sat sat behind me, and they're like pointing and telling me what to do, and like literally sat and designed the label like through me, essentially, that first IPA label. And it took quite a bit of time, but I think so. The next time when the brown ale came along, I think they were both just like, "Well, why don't you just send us something? We're not gonna sit and do that with you again." Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was like,
so use some drafts.
Yeah. Exactly. So that was for me, that was just a huge moment, because I don't know if you remember, but like everybody in Chico owned like the Sierra Nevada brown ale sweatshirt. It was like they sold hundreds of thousands of those things. Mm-hmm. It was. I think at one point the T-shirt guy told me that I was like the most prolific clothing designer in Chico, because they sold so many of those two sweatshirts and shirts. I mean, it's just funny. So that was kind of the bug that got me really excited about creating brands, because that was my first experience, and it was so successful, and just seeing it out in the wild like that was just amazing. That like I said, that was like that lit the fire for me. Like, this is what I really want to do with this thing, is like create brands and and have people connect with them and wear the shirt and get a tattoo. Like the ultimate goal is that they could tattoo my artwork. I was like, that was going to be the big win,
So. That is awesome. That is such a cool story. I want to ask you, were you into craft beer before the Sierra Nevada connection? Did Sierra Nevada kind of inspire craft beer more for you? Where's your background in beer lie?
Well, the first beer I ever had was a Sierra Nevada Porter. Sure. And I won't say how old I was. But my dad, growing up, like he very rarely drank beer. But but when he drank beer, the only beer he drank was Sierra Nevada. And people back then would make the rainbow pack. And I know that this pissed Ken off, but people would take, they'd have the 3 flavors, Pale Porter, Stout, and then they'd mix and match, and they'd get the variety pack, a little variety 6-pack. And so he would do that. And and I always see it in the fridge, and I always, and for me, growing up in Chico, there was a tremendous sense of pride with Sierra Nevada, because it was my hometown beer, and there was nothing else, like it that I could be proud of from Chico. I mean, there's nothing really came out of Chico. I think the Buns of Steel girl came from Chico, and then Sierra Nevada, like that was it. And so, later in life, when I was, traveling for work and going around the country, I always show up with Sierra Nevada, and I was like an ambassador for the brand, just because it was just something to talk about from my hometown, and I always had a real sense of pride for it. So I wasn't like a beer geek when I started at Sierra Nevada, but I certainly liked my beer and knew a lot about it. The one thing I will say, when I first started at Sierra Nevada, really nobody knew what craft beer was. And this isn't that long ago. This is 20-something years ago, but I remember having to explain to people what craft beer was. They're like, "Oh, you mean that heavy stuff?" I'm like, no, it's not a heavy beer. It's, it's handmade with, with love, or whatever. But like, no, it was so funny. So, so this is way before the boom that we just went through. And so I happened to be at the perfect place at the perfect time, being at Sierra Nevada when they went from I want to say it's like 450,000 barrels when I started. It was less than 500, I know that. To when I left, they were at their peak at 1.2 million barrels.
Wow.
And so, almost tripling in size, essentially.
Yeah, so you were there for a lot of that growth. I mean, that's
growth.
yeah.
That's why they hired him full time.
Yeah. I'm sure they realized really quickly how valuable, having a designer was.
Graphics team. Well, so yeah, I was the first graphic designer, and but as this thing started expanding, they just kept adding sales force. Their sales staff went from, I think, 25 people when I started to into the hundreds when I left. It was over 200. I mean, it was, I don't know. There was a lot of salespeople, but with that growth, you've got to support those sales team. And so our team grew from just me to, I started adding designers. And so I helped to build that department into a team of different people with different skill sets. And I think the smartest thing I ever did was the first person I ever hired, was, I was pretty young. So I hired somebody with, I think, almost 40 years of design experience. This woman who absolutely just knew the real, the technical stuff, the nuts and bolts about how to do typesetting and that's the stuff I think that I learned that really sets my work apart from other designers, is just the proper use of type and spacing and all those things. And so I think that that was just really smart, I think, of, looking back, just that I was able to check my ego and say, I'm going to bring in people that are good at things I'm not good at.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Create a well-rounded team, make sure you guys, absolutely.
Did Ken, did they give you full reign of that control of hiring?
Yeah. What kind of?
Oh, the hiring part. Yeah. Not the firing part. No, I'm just kidding. I wish no. Yeah, I had a lot of control on that for sure. That part of it, because they weren't designers. Ken's a brewer and an engineer. So he didn't. That wasn't his.
Sure.
And I don't think at that point Ken was probably not even involved in that part of the business.
Yeah.
But so I had a lot of reign in terms of building the team for sure, absolutely, and I'm pretty proud of the team of folks and the positions that we put together to support the team.
Yeah, absolutely. You've shown us a lot of the work that you put together during your time at Sierra Nevada. A lot of really cool projects. Is there something that sticks out to you as maybe one of your favorite projects or favorite labels, favorite designs that you got to put together at Sierra Nevada?
The best, and my pride and joy for Sierra Nevada was the Ruthless label. So nice. And I was just telling you guys a little bit about the story, but I think it was about 9 days before the national sales meeting, and they came to me, the director of sales and marketing came to me. He's like, "Hey, we need a beer, and Ken wants to use the name Ruthless, which they had used for beers in the pub before." So they had the beer dialed in, and he's like, you have 9 days to come up with this thing, and that was the one time I kind of had free reign, because there wasn't enough time for them to kind of to kick it around. And actually, and that was all my best. I think all of my best labels came under those circumstances where it was too late for any other cooks to get involved in that recipe. So I immediately thought of my favorite artist and illustrator, Ken Taylor, who, as I showed you around my house, I have his art everywhere. So I contacted him. I was like, "Hey, is there any way you're available for this thing?" And he's like, "Oh, sure." So he sends in this sketch, and everybody hated it except for one guy, the director of sales and marketing. He loved it. And so he was able to sort of sell everyone on the idea of this label, and it turned out to be an absolute home run.
Yeah.
And we won Best in Show with Beverage World magazine, and we got these awards for this label that we came up with, and we beat out major creative agencies that were competing for that type of award. And so that's when I sort of got the idea that maybe I could compete with those, big creative agencies on some level. And, I thought I would do that through Sierra Nevada. And for a long time I would do, kind of mimic what they did, and just do it in-house. But eventually that did lead to the inspiration for me to going out on my own and knowing that I could compete with, the big dogs.
Yeah.
And I have taken away jobs from big creative agencies, and that is one of the biggest senses of pride.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's got to be a cool sense of pride. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But they've taken jobs from me too. So some painful, really important ones. So
yeah, I think about Ruthless. I mean, it became such an iconic beer.
So iconic.
We were talking about it. There's always people in the comments at Sierra Nevada being like, bring back Ruthless. When is Ruthless coming back? It's got to be really cool for you to have been, the creator of that label, the creator of that design, to see this beer, and probably in large part because of the design, go on to become, this really iconic beer in craft beer culture. I mean, it's insane how many people love that singular beer.
Mm-hmm.
I do think the artwork, I mean, the beer is really good, but the artwork is spectacular. I just think that to me, it's like the coolest beer label ever. There's nothing better for me. Like, it just represents craft beer and like badass. And it's just like such a cool, and the story, there's a real story there. I actually wrote a whole story that I sent to the artist about, this woman, Ruth, who, she might be going through living on the farm, and she's out there with the sickle or a scythe, whatever. And, it's a cold summer, winter, and the ground, just all this stuff that went into the story. And I think when you look at the label, the story starts to come to life. And I was really inspired by some book cover illustrations that I was really interested in at the time. So like when you look at a book cover illustration, the idea is there's to tell a story at a glance. Right. And so that's what Ruthless is. And I think that has a huge reason why that brand was so successful, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to get to, the transition from you, leaving Sierra Nevada and going out on your own. I do want to ask first, though, you did work day to day in a brewery for 11 years, I think. Mm-hmm. Had to be a really cool experience. Can you talk to us about maybe some highs and lows? Like, what was, some of the best parts about working for Sierra Nevada, and maybe not bad parts, but what were some challenges that you faced, being this, and when you started a brand new position in this brewery?
Sure.
What was that experience like?
Well, it was literally, I don't know how to describe it just like from start to finish was just complete, not like great chaos. Like, it was like just this, we were completely buried. Like, every inch of that brewery from when I started to when I left was busting at the seams and could barely keep up. From production to marketing to every single aspect of it. We were running lean, and we were just really because
you guys were growing so fast.
And
like you got in the right time.
Absolutely. And especially for the industry too. I got into the beer industry at the perfect time, where it was went from being really unknown to this ubiquitous entity that we see today. So there were, the great part about it was it was exciting. It was an unbelievable learning experience. And because it was such a lean team, I had opportunities that I never would have had anywhere else. And I never would have been able to do that level of work, art directing these national brands, and I don't even think I was 30 years old or whatever, And it was so, and like, if I worked for a bigger company, there would have been, a lot of layers of people involved, and I would have, probably just gotten lost in the shuffle. So tremendous opportunity working for a lean organization. The challenges were, with, just the staffing. I think there was, you're growing so fast, and like the staff organization couldn't keep up with the growth of the company. I think that they were like, you just went from this small, literally essentially like a local family-owned business to this major corporation overnight. And I just don't think that it was hard to sort of, I think, to keep up with that, like the organizational structure. Right. And so there was a lot of people kind of trying to position themselves and things like that. Yeah. Which, I had no interest in ever. I just wanted to make great art. And that's all I ever cared about, was doing the art and creating the brands. And they wanted me to manage more and more people. And that wasn't something that interested me. I just wanted to create the branding. And so that was probably the only conflict I had, with my employment there, which is I didn't want to be a manager. That doesn't excite me. Yeah. I get excited by, like I said, seeing somebody walk down the street with my design on their sweatshirt. That's the special part of it for me. So those are the challenges. Like I said, it was, unbelievable. And the people were so cool. I loved everyone I worked with. Like two of my best friends to this day, I met at Sierra Nevada, and it's like my other buddy, we met through Sierra Nevada. So, and it's been 10 years since I worked there. So, so great company. And like I said, though, I just think they grew so fast. And there's going to be bumps.
Right. Of course. Yeah. I think any anyone in their position would experience those same, let's call it growing pains. Yeah.
And now my understanding is now, and I don't really work for them as much or at all right now, but I just know that they've really solidified that organizational structure, and they've got the right people in place and the right they figured all that stuff out now. It's just a process, when you grow, when you triple in size, there's going to be some.
When you deal with exponential growth like that. Yeah. You talked about it a little bit already, but I did want to ask you about the transition, going out on your own, and the inspiration behind that. And, what I'm sure there's a little bit of, for lack of better words, scariness to the idea of leaving Sierra Nevada and starting your own venture. But what was kind of the inspiration behind that?
So, my job at Sierra Nevada was to tell the Ken Grossman story. Like I was, when we did ads or whatever, I was telling the story about this guy that, went out on his own and took a chance on himself and followed his passion. And every time I did those ads, I was thinking, God, what am I doing? I'm sitting here, in this office, but why not me? Why can't I be like Ken Grossman? And so it essentially, like, he inspired me to leave his company. it's really kind of messed up, but it's true. Like I just would sit there and we were developing the brand and telling the story, and like, and every page I read, I was like, maybe this is me. Like, why can't I get out on my own and take a chance on myself? And so we did the Beer Camp Across America thing where literally we partnered with, I think it was like every craft brewery in the country, like everybody collaborated. I have the bottle somewhere. And I got to start meeting and talking to the different brewers, and they all were like, hey, do you know anyone that does this kind of work? And I was like, oh, no. And, I love working here. And then it started kind of sinking in. I was like, oh, all these guys are looking for somebody. Maybe there is a demand for a freelance, the guy. And I had been working with freelance artists so much, and I knew the level of success that they were having. So, I just decided it was my 40th birthday, and I decided to go out on my own. And I clocked in for the last time, clocked out for the last time, and went on a long bike ride. And honestly, for the first 6 years of leaving Sierra Nevada, I was never slow, ever. I was constantly getting people asking me for work. And it just took a few people to reach out to that. It just, like I said, it was from day one, it was super easy.
Yeah.
That's changed now, obviously, but it was really easy transition. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I did work when I first started, though. I worked so many hours because I was always worried that the bottom was going to fall out. Like I would work 60 plus hours a week just because I thought this might be my last, this could end really soon. So there was that part of it that was stressful, just in not knowing. And then I would get these big contracts, and then nothing would come through. Like I signed a contract with Gallo Wines, and I thought, oh, this is solve all my problems, and then they never sent me any work. They jumped through all these hoops and became a vendor, and then they're like, well, we didn't end up doing the project we wanted you for, and I later learned that they were going to buy a brewery. Oh, I see. And so that's why I got but then it fell through, and so anyways. Yeah. But then they had so much turnover too that, it was just a mess. But anyways, so.
Yeah. You were talking earlier about the award you won for the Ruthless, for the design. I wanted you to take us through some of like the other awards and stuff that you've gotten over the years.
Yeah. Cause it's there's a pretty good laundry list of everything you've been able to, be recognized for. Yeah. And I mean, are there other ones that stick out to you more than others, or? Yeah,
these guys here are. I got this little trophy for the. This is for the Kirkland Deschutes collaboration. So this was. This is the Craft Beer Marketing Awards, and the cool thing about this is that it's really my peers that are judging for this contest. So it's all like the art directors and the creative people in the beer industry are the judges. Yeah. So that was really special to win that award. And this was for the Platinum Award for the best beer bottle label design. I also won the same award for the THC beverage. So those are very new within the last few months, and those have been really special to me.
Yeah.
The other awards, like I've won some like technical awards for like best like graphic design for can printing, and those are really cool because that's the can manufacturers issuing those awards, and that's for like the technical production aspect of can printing. And so I think that really, like, my secret sauce is knowing about like the printing side of the business, like how the packaging is printing, and sort of I'm able to design the packaging and the print ready files in a way that really prints really well, and it meets their standards, and it really, so those kinds of awards are really, I think, more special than just the, this is a cool picture kind of award, which I do get a lot of those, but mostly, and the reason I'll enter my name into those awards is really, it's my only form of advertising.
Sure.
So I've never advertised or promoted myself really at all. I don't even Instagram, which is so bad of me. I should. I posted something on Instagram today. I was like, oh shit, these guys are coming over. I should act like no, I'm really bad about it, which as a marketer, is just shameful. But anyway, so those that's, like I said, it's just my way of getting my name out there without paying for advertising, which I just don't imagine myself ever doing.
Sure.
I don't know. I want to be like Ken Grossman and never pay for advertising.
All word of mouth. I like it. I mean, looking at this wall, I think it does all the advertising for you. Yeah.
Well, it was funny though. I watched you guys interview Ken, and and he started talking about those, the trials and tribulations of the beer industry over the last few years, and I was like, man, that absolutely parallels my journey though.
Yeah.
With COVID, I mentioned to you, I don't know if on here, but I had a contract with like the 10th largest brewery in the country, and I lost that during COVID when they had to lay off their staff because they were focused on-premise and not packaged beer.
Right.
So I was devastated, and this was like a great contract. And then what happened though with COVID was everybody started packaging all their beer. So every brewery in the country all of a sudden needed labels. So I actually had one of my best years, the first year of COVID. And I think Ken mentioned there was that COVID bump, which, really helped the industry because people were drinking at home.
Right.
Not
much else to do. Yeah.
They had stim money in their pockets, nothing to do.
But then like the last year and a half, it's been really tough. And so for the first time, I'm not turning away work. I'm actually having to knock on doors and say, hey, I've literally contacted every brewery in the country, just basically. And, but this funny thing is that never works. Like, they have to find me for it to work. And so all the clients that I'm getting all of a sudden it's not somebody I reached out to. They found me. And so it's like, well, am I wasting my time by knocking on doors? I don't want to just sit and wait for work to come, but that's the only way that it really seems to work out. It's weird.
There's been a big trend of even Ken was talking about it in the interview. The business goes through lulls, highs and lows of people tend to drink less, and then there's a time especially like you mentioned, the start of the pandemic, people are just we can drink at home, now we're kind of in this rut of people are being a little more, I don't know if it's health conscious or whatever, but they're tending to still drink but drink less. But there's been a boom of with non-alcoholic beers and stuff for almost the first time, really. Yeah, they're getting real popular.
Well, I think, craft beer as an industry, if there's one thing they've been, it's resilient. And they've adapted to the changing palates, needs of their audiences. So I think that's why we're seeing a lot of non-alcoholic stuff, come into kind of the fold.
Yeah. Athletic Brewing is one of the biggest breweries in the country. They're in top 10 breweries or something. I forget what number they are. They're huge.
Yeah, and they only focus on non-alcoholic. Right. They don't have alcoholic.
And they, the stuff they make. And look, I know people have their thoughts on non-alcoholic, but we've had some of their stuff. It's decent. Good. It's decent. Really for non-alcoholic beer, it's pretty darn good.
Sierra Nevada, the Trail Pass. It's amazing. It's a really tasty beverage. I'm not going to lie. I mean, it's a lot different than the O'Douls of the past.
The one we found, because I was doing this thing I'm probably going to do this year, where I just I kind of go sober from October to my birthday at the end of January. It's a real cool time transition where we could actually keep the podcast, our beer review going, and we're we could do some non-alcoholics, and one of the ones that we really liked was that Deschutes, the Black Butte Porter.
Oh yeah.
And that non-alcoholic one, we both looked at each other, we're like, this tastes like beer.
Yeah.
Straight up. It's crazy.
Process. There's some company that they work with that they're achieving that, and I don't know the whole process. Like at one point I helped design some of that packaging, or like for Deschutes, I'll do a lot of just like production design work where like they'll have someone create the art, and then I'll take that art and I'll put it on the 6-pack, the 12-pack, the can, and all that. So I don't get to be creative on a lot of stuff for them. Once in a while, they'll let me do like this vintage ale. Just because that's definitely in my wheelhouse, but for the most part, like I just do like the boxes and stuff, because I love that part too, because no one ever critiques your work. Like everyone's just like, oh, it looks great, it's prints good. It's just, there's no a committee that's evaluating the artwork. So anyways, So the other thing though that a lot of breweries are doing, and this has kind of helped out my year a lot, is that they're starting to branch out into like THC cannabis. So the breweries, like one of my clients, the Speak Drift in South Carolina, they started making, it's a Delta 9. It's called it's like a hemp derived cannabis, which is legal in South Carolina. And so that's what I won one of these awards for, with that can design. I don't have the can. They won't send me one. I don't know why. I think they're worried about legally.
Sure.
But that's one of my favorite designs I've ever done. And so that's sort of creating this new revenue stream, as like everybody wants that. And then for a while it was hop water too. Like everybody had to have a hop water. So that was like kind of last year's kind of thing. And so that has led to me now doing a lot more THC work. So I'm actually starting to work with one of the largest cannabis companies in the country. Starting like next week, I'll be doing packaging for them.
That's wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, and that just, again, because the craft brewers sort of, led the way, I think, in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those are becoming like less, they've been around for a little bit, but they're becoming less novelty now and more just mainstream, where people are like I said, we were, as a society, we're tending to drink a little less, but because of the whole, legality situation for California, or where we're at with marijuana, it's more mainstream, I suggest. So
across the country. Too.
And so like the vibe of using marijuana is getting more and more, just okay. In
normalized.
Normalized. Thank you.
I never wanted to put it on my portfolio. I always thought it didn't look good to mention that I did that kind of work, because I've done a little bit of it in the past, and I just always thought, it doesn't.
It's almost like a taboo thing.
It is a little weird. I didn't then I look like I'm some kind of stoner or something. I didn't want people to think they couldn't count on me or whatever. But now it's so commonplace that I actually average or put on my little thing that I do that now. It's like part of the deal. It's part of the services. Marijuana.
That's cool.
Marijuana. I wanted to ask you, I've got a couple of questions that I'm really curious about. First and foremost, you got to get a lot of cool swag from all these breweries and organizations that you work with. We're drinking some of that cool swag right now. Thank you very much, by the way. There's got to be some fun extracurricular perks to, doing all of this work in the design space.
You saw my Dogfish Head, a lighted sign. Like that was like my favorite project that I've ever done, was doing a series of lighted signs for pubs for Dogfish. And it's got these cool Edison bulbs, and but so at the end of the day, when I was done with the project, it's like, hey, can I get one of those? They're like, well, it was like $500, and so it's kind of funny. They ended up putting me in touch with the manufacturer, and they're like, well, here, contact them, and they'll send you one out. So I reached out to the manufacturer, and they're like, hey, you designed this thing? Like, would you like to design more signs for us? So it was like, that turned into like a new client. And so I still do like signs and tap handles for that manufacturer. But that's the best. And then, if I get a prototype neon sign that, this could never go on the market, and it was sitting in the back of the graphics department, and, things like that are cool. I get it. Cool glassware. Sure. A lot of my clients are on the East Coast, so it's pretty far for them to send me that stuff. And then they'll send me a bunch of shirts, and they'll be like large. And I'm like, dude. So my kids don't even fit in those, but I get a lot of t-shirts for sure.
Definitely.
Cool.
And you get to work with, in your role now, you get to work with so many different breweries. I mean, I was looking at, you have Secret Trail cans up there, the now retired Secret Trail, but and you're working with companies like Russian River, or breweries like Russian River. There's got to be a lot of diversity in, going from small breweries to big breweries. And I'm sure you get to meet a lot of really fascinating people going through this. What's it been like working with all these different I guess, scales of breweries and organizations.
Yeah, I mean, Vinny is absolutely my favorite client. Vinny and Natalie are just so cool, and they've been so supportive of my career, and like they've gone on podcasts and given me a shout out, and my phone will start ringing. Like that's some good stuff right there. I absolutely love them, and I can't thank them enough. And they always send me beer, no matter. They're just the tip of the spear for great clients. Beyond that, I've got very wide range from small single owner companies to I worked with Craft Brew Alliance for many years, and that was just layers and layers of marketing people. But that was one of the best learning experiences of my life to be thrown into that company, and that was like the most valuable experience for me as a freelancer, was working for Craft Brew Alliance, because of the people that work there, their staff, the guy, so they were a great client for many years. They were purchased by Anheuser-Busch, and they went away as a client. But all the people that I work with there, they went on to lead these just amazing leadership roles, top level executive leadership roles for some of the biggest breweries in the country. And that was just a testament to how talented they were, and just the organization. So every step of the way, when I work with somebody like that, I try to take away as much as I can about, what they're doing right. So there's just fantastic people like that.
One of the things I want to ask you, Jason, and I'm surprised it's taken us this long in the interview to ask you this. I want to ask about your style. And it's a really general, open-ended question, but I wanted to see if you could take us through your style, maybe some inspirations behind it, and kind of how you put your own individual style together.
I try to think like I don't have a style. I try to my goal is to be able to work in any style that my job isn't to promote my own style and put my style out there. Really, my job is to tell the story of the liquid and the company, the brewery. And so I try to work. And if you look around, there's a lot of different styles, right? There's nothing that you would say, oh, this is this guy, right? So hopefully AI can never take my style, because it's really all over the place. And I think it's really good for the brands. I think it may hurt me is in my career, just in terms of there's not like a one recognizable style that people can just hire me for. A lot of times people will see an image that an artist do, and they go, oh, I want that on my beer label. And so they hire that guy. And that's not really me. I don't have just a one style. Like I said, I'm really trying to adapt and tell that story of the beer and bring the brand to life. So I'd like to think I don't have a style, but having said that, Vinny at Russian River, they give me so much leeway in the work that I do see my style come through in their branding and packaging. And there's I can start to see who I am as an artist when I look at the range of work I've done for them, because that's the stuff that is really just kind of me expressing myself in a way. And I don't know why it comes through in his brand more than any, but I think it's because, like I said, they kind of give me a real long leash in terms of what I'm creating. And the things that I do, really, if you look at all the work, though, it's very colorful.
It's very bright.
Bright colors. There's very few, not a lot of muted, dark stuff. It's going to try to catch your eye on the shelf. And I like to use pure, real pure greens. When you look at this label, it's got that real vivid, natural, vibrant green. And the reason I like that is because I know that if I pull out all those weird colors, it's going to print better, Right. So when I'm designing and creating colors, I'm thinking in my head, what is the going to look like when it's printed and on press? And there are certain colors that if you get in the mix there, it just gets muddy on the printed label, especially with greens, and they can start to get grayed out and stuff like that. So I try to keep my colors just really pure, so that when the job's printed, it's just going to come to life. And not be a mess of muted colors or something like that, because I don't get to be involved in the end game, the printing as much anymore. Now that I'm just kind of a hired gun, and the companies are all over the country, I just need to design it in a way that I know it's going to print well.
I feel like that's pretty key for you, because I work at a t-shirt, printing, screen printing. And there's, you have clients that they'll send you their mock images and stuff. They want these Pantones colors and everything. And, we're doing the shirts. We know it's not going to necessarily translate that well to the material, to the kind of shirts they want, whether it be different material or different size clothing and stuff. And it's just going to look weird. And with your knowledge of like the production side of it, you're like, I'm thinking that way. So I know which colors to use immediately, so it pops.
And I will say that, like I mentioned, I grew up on Butte Creek, and so my natural tendency, if someone's just like draw something and they don't have a lot of time, it's going to be trees and mountains and a river. I'm just sorry. It's like, that's my thing. I can knock that out. I got it all in my head. Like when I did that poster for the Paradise Brew Company, their Rocktoberfest posters, like the background's like mountains and trees. I'm like, I know I can fill that space in.
You can't go wrong with mountains and trees.
Not in the beer industry, so.
I love it. I wanted to take a moment to kind of reflect on your journey and what this entire experience has been like for you up until this point. You've accomplished a lot. You've gotten to have a lot of really cool relationships, experiences in general. What has this been like? What are you most proud of about this journey?
Well, I mean, for me, the goal and the thing that brings the most pride is just to keep it going and keep that dream going. And it's been over 10 years that I've worked for myself, and that's the dream. It's just to keep it alive and keep going, and to be able to sit here at my desk and in my sweatpants and, and listen to whatever music I want. Nice. And that's like there was a lot of things like family things that that enabled too, being able working for myself. I was able to pick up my kids right after school. They'd have to go to after school programs, stuff like that. Little things that really made a huge difference for our family. But like I said, the motivation is just to keep getting work and just keep this thing going as long as I can.
Yeah.
And it's always changing and evolving, and I've got to just I've got to change with the industry. So like for me, that means moving into cannabis a little bit and starting to do that type of work. I've also really gotten into wine labels. I work for one of the largest wine producers in the world, out of Napa, and I just do like packaging work for them. It's not they haven't like let me design designs, like create the art, but I'm taking that art and translating it into wine labels and getting to know the wine industry, which is really confusing, especially they're international. I mean, just to know, like, because I'm not a wine drinker, I never have been, and I just honestly probably never will be, but I've got to know like what bottle goes with what type of glass and that kind of stuff, and then getting to know the legal aspects of it. And that's, with cannabis has been the biggest challenge, like really trying to master that part of it. So it's exciting, I think, to get into, to sort of tap into those other areas. And again, the whole hope there is just to keep it going.
It's so fascinating because, on the outside looking in, I wouldn't think that you would have to learn all of these different things about these different industries in order to, craft the design or work on the design side of things, but you really do. I mean, there's so much that goes into it, and you have to be well versed in pretty much everything. And that's I didn't realize that, and I'm kind of realizing it in real time that there's a lot of legwork that goes into all of this.
The thing that that really helps, like differentiate myself from the other designers is knowing that legal part of it. And so by me knowing that and looking forward and, doing the trademark research or like, trying to make sure that the label is legally compliant from day one, that just eliminates so many steps and hoops for my clients that they see me as a resource, so they know that they can come to me and I can not only create a design, but it's going to get approved the first time by the TTB or the whatever governing body. And so like, I think that's, again, it's like, I'm just trying to help, make myself, a great resource for my clients. And then, like I said, but just looking forward when you do that stuff, because it's one thing to come up with a great looking label, but if all the legal stuff's wrong and then the client has to go back and forth with their legal compliance folks and, is this, there's things you can't do on a beer label, like, can't be too cute and look like a kid's label, can't appeal to children, those things, and the copyright infringement, all that kind of stuff. And now with AI, I don't think we want to get into AI.
Sure. No. That might be a conversation.
But there's a whole legal argument there about using AI artwork. Like, do you even own it? Which I don't think you do own the artwork if it was created by AI, because what would stop someone else from typing in those words to get that artwork? Yeah. So anyway, it's just those things I think that really are important. It's just, you've got to be a resource, and you got to make the people you work for's lives easier so they want to come back.
Yeah. One of the last things I want to ask you, I know you got a concert, so we want to get out of your hair at an appropriate time here, but you mentioned it a couple of times that one of the biggest drivers for you in all of this is you just want to tell great stories through the designs, through the work you put together. I think with everything we've seen, everything we've talked about, you've told some really great stories, and people have really responded to that. Whether it's loving Ruthless Rye, whether it's seeing these great Russian River designs. I mean, people have enjoyed the work that you've done on a pretty, let's call it global level. What does it mean to you that these stories that you're telling are impacting so many folks in this way?
It's kind of funny because I always used to think about when I create a beer label, I'm like, how many people are gonna at a hook up at a bar over my beer label, or how many people are gonna get divorced over, because of it. So you try not to think about that too much. I don't know. I mean, but the bigger thing for me is creating, building up these brands, and it's not. I mean, the end customer. The drinker is definitely important, and I want them to appreciate it. But for me, I feel like I want to build the breweries up, because how cool is it that I helped start this Peak Drift Brewing Company and Peak Drift a few years ago, and now they're the largest beer producer in South Carolina within 2.5 years. And so the cool thing about that is I'm helping to create jobs. The label and the branding and the artwork and building this thing that is now employing hundreds of people. That's cool. I mean, obviously, I love the, I was so inspired to see the people with the Sierra Nevada t-shirts everywhere. Always, that was really cool at one time for me. But now, like I said, the big thing is just, to create a company with somebody, and to, I want to take that small guy and help him become this, big player. I want to create the next Sierra Nevada, and you can do that with the brand. I think that I used to be unsure of how important the branding was. And now, having done this and helped these small companies grow, I see it. It is a huge impact that you can have with just the label design and coming up with the lockup and what does the family of products look like on a shelf? It's so important. Like I said, you can build a company. I can change a community, by building up this brewery, and I've done that with several. This brewery in Ohio, we just. Absolutely just help this small company just turn into this, significant employer, and they're giving back to their community and donating and doing events and fundraisers. That's the good stuff, I think.
Yeah, that is fantastic. I mean, that's a really awesome perspective on this. Jason, I want to thank you. This has been awesome. I mean, a fantastic conversation.
Pleasure.
It's so cool to, be able to look at this side of the industry, because we don't get to have these kinds of conversations when you're talking to a brewer or something like that. But to go about this route and to have this connection has been really awesome. Before we let you go, anything coming up? Anything on the horizon?
Yeah, well, the weed, whiskey, and wine are my current projects. Hey. It's really funny. It sounds like a country song, but man, it's literally last week I did my first whiskey label, and I did a wine brand from Norway. And then this coming up week, like I mentioned, I'm launching, I just signed a contract, and I'm going to start working with one of the largest weed or cannabis companies in the country. Those guys are massive. I can't believe they're bigger. I mean, I can't believe how many employees work for them. Really? It's they hundreds of employees, But anyway, so that's just really exciting. And always, and then I've got a new brewery. These guys are just blowing up in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And so I'm starting with them like either next week, probably following week, just completely rebranding their product. And, you know, they were just a couple guys started this brew pub, and they got into Whole Foods or something like that. And it just blew up. And, you know, they're like, we need, you know, branding, real help, you know, like, because they had some, you know, labels, but it didn't show up on the shelves. And so all of a sudden they just realized it's like, oh yeah, we got to think about this part of it now. And so I'm really excited about working with those guys, and, you know, it just never stops. It's just, there's going to hopefully there's going to always be the next. I
was going to say, that's got to be the beauty of this, right? Yeah. There's always something new or different. I feel like no day is the same for you.
No, not at all. But that's what keeps it fun too, for sure. You know, I do definitely like bouncing around from different projects, for sure. Absolutely.
Well, again, Jason, thank you so much. This has been awesome. Sure. Opening up your home, your office to us. So we really appreciate it, and we can't wait to see what's next for you.
Awesome. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Yeah. Salute.